Okay, perfect. We're live. I'm just going to make sure that we're streaming on Facebook, Fiorella, and then we will get into it. Okay, perfect. Let me just check the settings. Okay. Okay.
We're all good to go.
I think so.
Yeah.
Should I look at your thing? Yeah, perfect.
All
We seem
right.
to be streaming.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So, welcome, Fiorella. We're live with Fiorella Giordano. It is so good to have you on here. We can't wait to hear more from you. We're having a little chat earlier. We just love what you're about and the things that you do and the things that you share. And we're really honored to have you on here. Now, I love your bio. I think it's like the best bio out there. You say that I build ages through divine intel and eternal design, architecting prototypes that sync heaven and earth. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what this actually means?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm not quite sure where to begin. I guess I'll just begin with the ages.
Yes.
I didn't start out there. It was something that the Lord transitioned me into, and it took me a minute to understand what it was. But the transition was that I wasn't called to build a ministry. I wasn't called to build a movement. I was called to build an age. And anything that, if there's a ministry or a movement that manifests out of what I do, it's not necessarily my intention. The intention is building the age, and the other stuff is just a byproduct. But the Lord was really honing in my focus onto what I was supposed to be building. And it was very specific to the next 100 years. And so I invested the next few years really diving into what it means to build an age, and what exactly is even an age, and how can you build one, and how would you go about doing so. So I realized that um, building ages, you have to really understand its systems, and
Yeah.
the systems that connect to those things, and how it has the capacity to sync heaven and earth in a way that is so much more amplified versus doing something that is not necessarily on an age spectrum. So essentially what I do is I frame the consciousness of an age, and then from that standpoint, then I begin to build um, understanding how the land, the region, the water, everything works, and how what I'm carrying can complement that dimension and then take it to its highest potential. So it's in essence, that's what I mean by building those prototypes and systems and those kinds of things.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I really do think in this era that we're in now, systems and strategies are so important. And we were speaking to somebody recently, and one thing that he was comparing the generic church to, and where we're at now is he was saying how important it is for us to be building systems and strategies more than ever. And one thing that actually said was a lot of people that are actually making an impact on the earth right now are people that have been in military prior, because they understand systems and strategy. So yeah, I love what you're doing and what you're sharing with us, and essentially what you're teaching us during this time. It's really crucial.
Would love to know more about what God's shown you in regards to this coming age, because I've heard some stuff that you've actually been shown something about 100-year glimpse into the future. Tell us more about that. It sounds really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so I want to first say that it's not necessarily a linear 100 years.
Yeah.
So we're handling the substance of things, so for the evidence of things not seen. So it's not necessarily in a timeline form. So I didn't necessarily see what's going to happen in the next 100 years. I was
Yeah.
given the substance of potential of what could happen in the
Wow.
next years. So
Yeah.
that's the distinction. Um, Shifting from a paradigm of foresight only to the forethought of God. And that was the main shift for me personally that the Lord was really sharpening, because I had been raised up in the prophetic movement. And so there has been a huge investment into the foresight, what's going to happen, what kind of crises are going to emerge and those kinds of things. And the Lord really had to take me to this place where he added to that, in the sense of that, yes, that's important and it has a place, but what hasn't been considered is my forethought. If there is foresight, then there's forethought. And so ages, you interface more with the forethought of God, which is his kind intention towards a generation, and you frame from that place. So essentially, when I was taken into the encounter of the 100-year realm, which I didn't know that was what was happening at the time, I was physically taken into heaven. So it wasn't something that, my spirit was taken. Like, I was physically taken, and it's the only time that that's ever happened. And I didn't know. I knew it was happening before I was taken and then after the fact. So I didn't really know while the encounter was happening that I was somewhere else. And there was a whirlwind that came into my room and then sucked me into the heavens. And it took me into a dimension that I had been to the previous year on the same date, but that time the Lord only had taken me in the spirit. So he hadn't taken me physically there. Anyway, I'm not going to go into both encounters, but just for the sake of answering your question, that's where I was given, I stumbled really into a large container or bottle of what looked like an emerald green liquid of sorts. I didn't know what it was. And I just picked it up, and when I drank it, I heard the voice of the Lord tell me, you are right now drinking the evidence of 100 years. And the liquid wasn't necessarily like a drink. It was more like a plasma, and it was very dense, and it had like this like iridescent sort of I don't know, energy or something in it. And then from there the Lord started showing me something that he was building a new mountain, and that this new mountain was a completely new thing that was going to come into the earth, and that there were different gateways that he was going to open up for me, that they were very sovereign and only he could open. And so anyway, in that place, I sort of came back to the earth, and I realized, I mean, I could feel the drink still in my stomach, like physically feel it in my stomach.
Wow.
And I was just, I think that my life just completely changed. I don't really know what just happened. I don't fully understand what I saw or what I experienced. It was a cosmic dimension that he took me in. So it wasn't like a heavenly, quote unquote Zion or the New Jerusalem or anything like that. It was something very cosmic. It was like out in the middle of the cosmos, like a space needle, like a supernatural heavenly space needles, sort of space. And anyway, so from there, that was in 2014. So that was, I had no grid of what was happening at that point. And it wasn't until 2016 that things started landing here and there. But it wasn't fully till 2020 that I understood what had actually happened. So in 2020, the Lord called me into an extended fast. And then during that fast and after that fast, it became very clear that the mandate was to build the next 100 years. But I understood it wasn't a linear 100 years. It was more the potential of 100 years. So those 100 years that substance could be manifested in 5, or it could be manifested in 50, or, it just depends on how things are built, what form you choose to put the substance in. And so that was where I started asking questions like, okay, how do you do that? How do you build an age? And the Holy Spirit began to speak to me about his forethought in this space, that you have to understand ages from a forethought perspective versus a foresight, because when we think about an age, say the Renaissance or the Enlightenment era or whatever you want to talk, or if you want to think bigger ages like the Bronze Age or the Iron Age or things like that, or if you want to go astronomical and think of Pisces or Aquarius or whatever, normally when we think about those ages, we think of them as they're framed hindsight. So you live the age, and then a historian or a group of historians comes by, and then they frame and they say, this is what happened in this age, and this is what we're going to name it.
Yeah.
So usually the people living in that age don't really know what's happening till after the fact, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually another generation that frames it. Well, what the Lord wants to do is he wants the forethought so that people that are coming into the age have the forethought to be able to frame and name the age and be able to govern it rather than just find themselves in it. So that's the forethought key that is really important.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Keep going. Keep going. This is really
Okay.
good.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to pause.
Keep going. This sounds really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, from that place, now, if you're talking about the forethought of God, then you're going into his thoughts, right? So if one of the things that the Lord told me is that ages are framed. So there's the forethought space, but that forethought, it's one thing to be like, Lord, what are the forethoughts of this age? And you find yourself with a very expansive question that you're gonna feel very overwhelmed trying to navigate it. So I had to microdose myself in my inquiry. So the way that I inquired about certain things had to be, I really had to not simplify it, but I really had to shorten what I was like asking. So I found myself thinking about forethought and what it is. When you have forethought about something, you think about everything that needs to be in place. Like when you have a guest over, you have forethought of like, they're going to need towels, they're going to need a bed, they're going to need maybe some snacks, so you have a level of forethought of what their needs are going to be. Okay. And that's a very rudimentary example. But in the same way, when God is birthing an age and he's dreamt up an age, he has thought and considered of every potential, every person that is part of that age. And so he has thoughts towards those things. And it's those thoughts that we want to enter into rather than a foresight dimension, because then the foresight collapses you into a timeline. And so if you're collapsed already into a timeline, then you're going to be limited. So you want to start from the unlimited and then narrow it so that you can birth a reality rather than trap yourself in a reality that you're already perceiving. So I had to really fine tune this concept of how do you go about this. So I started thinking about the Renaissance because it was an age that it was easy for me to gravitate to. I have an English degree. I love literature. I love art. So it was just something that was natural for me. And I started thinking about that particular age and how, it was framed and how the Medici were instrumental in the framing of the Renaissance, right? Even though they were bankers, they were really the financiers of the age. And they architected it very methodically in the sense that they gave patronage to certain artists and certain innovations, but they were after ideas. So they had a certain value system for certain ideas. And so then they financed the artists that could amplify those ideas in the collective consciousness. So whether it was in the piazzas or whether it was in just in the art space, in the music space, in innovation, in whatever it was, they were in it. Okay, so whether you were a mathematician, you were an astronomer, they wanted to finance what was important to them. And so with that in mind, I started thinking about how everything in the Renaissance could be compressed into one idea, that man is the measure of all things. That was the idea that was the standard for the Renaissance. So the idea that compresses the value system of the age into an idea form becomes the measure of the age. And everything that that generation births or brings into being, that's their ceiling. That's as far as they'll go. And so if you are able to tap into the idea that becomes the measure of the age, then you can lead the government of the age.
Yeah.
And so by doing that, I started really thinking about the power of ideas and how ideas are more than just figments of the imagination, that they're really realms, divine realms, heavenly realms, that are angelic realms that are connected to ideas. So ages are so connected to ideas because ideas can be dispersed so quickly through the collective consciousness. And how they can generate, they create systems that are like orbit points for the consciousness of a generation. So a generation will orbit, say, let's take the mystic movement, for example. Immortality is an orbit point, right? That we orbit a lot. So a lot of our attention goes into the realm of immortality. And from that standpoint, we develop thoughts, ideas, imaginations, dreams, and then the revelatory lands on that realm. But really, it's our attention that creates an orbit point or a system of thought. And so the idea itself becomes the governing pattern for the thought intelligence of a generation. But it takes people thinking on this level rather than finding themselves beneath that level and just sort of catching the ideas.
Yeah.
So it takes a whole other level of intentionality
Yes.
of engaging the thoughts of God, the reasonings of God, which are not, is not logic. The reasoning of God is yielding yourself, surrendering yourself to the pattern of his thought, and allowing that pattern to distill faith in you.
Yeah.
So by faith, we understand how the worlds were framed, right?
Yeah.
So when you enter into the thoughts of God, you can enter into the realm of his reasoning, which is where you allowed his pattern of that thought to distill things in you, to think of it as almost like Abraham being given the opportunity for, to stand for Sodom and Gomorrah. And, he asks for, I think, 50 first, or maybe 20. And then it goes down all the way to 10, right? And so he entered into a thought with God, and he allowed the thought to distill all the way down to the max of his faith.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So in the same way, the thoughts of God can do the same thing. They're not necessarily intellectual exercises. They're very much connected to the faith realm.
Yeah.
So when we are thinking with God, so there's that realm of reasoning, and then you can go into the co-thinking space where you have an exchange with God, where you're thinking with him. So you're part of his ideation process, and you can begin to observe a whole other level of intelligence that gives you leadership in the natural, because what has been framed in you, what you have seen, has created a different thought capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So it sounds like God's upgrading humanity into a higher level of government with him. Um, and this is all, like you said, it's all potential, isn't it? So it's kind of like in quantum physics, that we can actually, there is all this potential, but it's up to us as to how we manifest this. I'd love to know a little bit more, if you can share, about how can we actually bring this coming age into the now?
Yeah. So ages are more than time vessels. Okay. They're not just large time ecosystems. They are beyond time. So an age carries the emotional longing of God for a generation.
Yeah.
And in that heart space that the Lord deposits, that is a part of himself that he deposits in an age, in that realm is what I call the imaginal core. It's all the longings and desires of God for that generation. And and then there's the potential for that generation, and he takes into consideration the destiny scrolls that are part of that generation. And he gives a domain of potential that that generation can enter into. But if that generation abdicates that potential or is limited by old paradigms and cannot enter into the full realm of that potential, then there is a collapse that happens. And so it's what we call the desolation of many generations. And so
Wow.
there's those depressions within an age that happen whenever a generation doesn't fully step into or loses something. And so another generation has to rise up and synergize those dimensions of ages. And so I believe that we are standing in an age, the age of God, that has the capacity, has the technology within it to synergize the desolation of many generations from many ages, but also it has its own realm of potential. And one of the best ways to unlock potential in an age, so again, you have to think micro as much as you think macro. So big and small, so personal and age domain. So if you start with your own potential and stewarding your own potential, which is connected to your identity. So it really comes down to identity. If your identity is in a place of dysfunction, or it's in a place of collapse, or it's in a place of limitation, then your potential is already shrinking. It's already, crippled. And so one of the first things is to really um,
Wow.
to really come into your identity, but not in a quest of trying to know yourself, but understanding that there is a pattern that God has placed inside of you. And within that pattern, your identity code, um, that identity code carries your design, it carries your multi names. So you have many names, and God will call certain names at the forefront of your being. And so yes, identity is important, but you also have to know what name is he calling forth? What name are you operating out of in a particular season, so that your potential for that dimension of your identity can fully rise. So he'll develop different facets of your identity. So I would say that before even unlocking the potential of an age, the identity of a people has to be in place, whether it's on a personal scale or in a collective scale. And a lot of it is defining what that identity is. So naming it is governmental, and it gives substance structure to manifest. So when you are functioning under the true essence of your name, then your potential will just be an outflow of who you are. And it'll manifest what needs to manifest. It'll be fluid. But whenever you are not operating out of authenticity, then it becomes toil, and it becomes performance. It becomes like it's just not real. And the thing is that if it's not authentic, if it's not in its authentic design, then it will not enter into its fullness. So on the same standpoint, when it comes to an age, and we can, this is where the foresight realm plays a role, where you can have vision for things. A generation can have vision for things, and they may not step into it for A, B, or C. And some people would be accepting that and saying that's it just wasn't for us to carry, it was for another generation to carry. Or we can really start thinking about taking ownership of the age and saying, Lord, we understand that this age is in being right now. We understand that there is a mode of transition that is going to take us from the old to the new. So you are not going to be able to unlock the potential of an age in an old system, in an old paradigm, in an old blueprint. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So a lot of us are still stuck in the old systems, the old paradigms, the old mindsets, if you want to get down to a personal level. But we have to learn to transition out of those things, so that then, with our identity in place and with our alignment in the realm of systems in place, we can fully begin to flesh out what the age is wanting to release. Because God he doesn't want to reboot things. And something that I think that maybe easy for people in this audience to connect to is the idea, for example, of revival, and all the prophetic words concerning revival, and how revival has been so programmed into our spirituality, into our hope, our expectation. Everything has been so much entrenched in the idea of revival. And I think that that the transition, for example, for the church coming out of like a blueprint of, we have to take these mountains and we have to, and then we're going to have revival if we do A, B, or C. There's like all these check boxes that all these boxes that we have to check. Instead of looking at it this way, instead of looking at the deposits of heaven as wells that need extraction, what if we shifted into the perspective of an ocean, where it's not toil based, but it's simply entering into the ocean, right? So at that point, you're entering into a different vantage of points that allow you to see the potential of an age in a different way. So yes, God wants to release life, and it may not necessarily look like revival, so to speak, but God wants to release transfiguration. And so now you have the same substance. Revival is in the old blueprint, transfiguration is in the new blueprint.
Mm.
So from that realm, something that the Lord told me about healing, for example.
Yeah.
And I talk about this in my Age of God manifesto, is that I had a dream where the Lord was speaking to me about the realms of wholeness that he wanted to bring into the earth. But they were so big, so high, that basically you couldn't, he said to me, the people will, and even myself, you will not be able to enter into these realms unless you have vision for immortality. So
Yeah.
immortality was the max potential. It wasn't healing. But the heightened realms of healing were under the government of immortality.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking revival, you're only going to get revival kind of miracles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The miracles that are part of that blueprint. But if you're thinking immortality, then the realm of healing can open up to that full scroll, and then it can manifest from that space. So that's the distinction of potential, is going from one understanding to the next understanding, and that's what your alignment to that new understanding is what unlocks the potential. So right now we are in this place where we haven't seen a lot of the movement of healing that has even been prophesied
Yeah.
for this generation to enter into. And part of my question has been, Lord, why? Why haven't we entered into? Is it a lack of consecration? Is it we can go through all the whole list of things that could be. But something that the Lord told me was that it's that the age has entered. When a new age is released, it activates a new realm of destiny. So it's almost like the destiny scrolls of regions, of places, of people. Because the age of God is releasing a greater measure, it's like what a person could have operated out of the lesser work dimension, but now they can operate out of a greater work dimension because the scroll for the age is different. The potential of the age is different. So when you understand that there is with the age comes a new angelic grid.
Yeah.
And so that potential is not just an abstract thing that is just sitting there and it could potentially happen. It's carrying a nest of angelic hosts that are there to facilitate that potential. But those angels can't move unless you're in alignment with the new measure of the age. And so we keep on trying to engage the age, this next age, but with the old blueprint. And we can't enter into its potential. We can't even see it. We can't even see the potential. We can't even fully see the blueprint because we're so blinded by the old, right? So I would say identity and alignment with the measure of the age that is going to unlock the potential of the age.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's incredible. What are some of the things do you think that are holding back people from coming into this new grid, this new mindset? I mean, they're holding on to the old, but I mean, why? Why is that? Like, you know, I know this is the key to unlocking
Yeah.
this potential, but I mean, would love to hear if you know anything more, if you can speak more specifically on just some areas maybe that people can sort of you know, check
So
themselves.
I think that one of the main issues is that there is they're very attached to their investment. Like they have invested years into a promise, right?
Yeah.
Many people have invested years, they have invested finances, they have invested their attention, they have invested even their family location. They have relocated for things, right? And so there is a level of attachment because you have invested so much. Like, how could you let go of now?
Mm.
Right. So there's that quandary right there that
Yeah.
seems to be so paradoxical, you know, when God is saying, I want you to let go of the form, not the substance. It's the form that you need to let go of.
Yeah.
And Jesus, you know, when he talked about unless a seed falls to the ground, so he's talking about a grain, right? Unless a grain, so it's not any seed, a grain falls to the ground, it will not bear fruit. Okay, but if it does fall and it does and it dies, right? It bears much fruit. And I'm paraphrasing the passage, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
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 And with this particular analogy that he makes is that a grain, um, so seeds don't just die, like they're just dormant potential, right? But with a grain, what dies is the outer part of the grain. And the reason why it does is because it sacrifices itself to feed what's inside the seed. It's
Mm.
a different kind of seed. So he could have used any other seed analogy, but he used the grain because it's self-sacrificial, right? And so that's what he was talking about. He wasn't talking about like all things dying and you letting go, but he's talking about that outer layer that is keeping the potential in a form that is not its true form.
Mm.
So when you allow that when you let go of that form, giving the Lord permission to bring it back if he wants to. And it's not necessarily like, oh, we're laying down, you know, and this is our Isaac and we're laying it down. And it's not necessarily that. It's more of there are things that this promise has become in my heart and in my mind through my interpretation that are not its true form. And so we're letting go of those things. So letting go of the form. So that whatever modality that is, whether it's a form of ministry, a form of business, a form of you know, I don't know, living your life, a lifestyle form, whatever that may be, you letting go of that form and allowing the true pattern of what's inside the seed to come forth
Mm.
so that you can really enter into the true promise. Um, is the thing, but I think that one of the issues is that is the investment, and there's the fear of like, what if I miss it? What if I am
Yeah.
abdicating my inheritance? You know, we've stood our ground for so long. How could we, you know, let go now? And what it really comes down to is trust and knowing that the glory of the latter is greater than the former, right? And knowing that the goodness of God is so faithful to lead you into the right pattern, and his voice is so kind that if you're letting go of something that you're not supposed to be letting go, that he is going to be telling you, do not let go of this. Like I've had moments where in this process of just transitioning in my own paradigms and in my own understandings of where I've had dreams and the Lord's like, don't let go of that. That's the true form. Like, don't let go of this. And so the Holy Spirit will highlight certain things, but you have to be willing
Yeah.
to lose it and to gain the new. And I think that if you can get yourself rooted in that motion, in that movement, then it'll be easy. You'll be guided by peace because really it's ultimately his peace. It'll be painful. Like there'll be moments where you might grieve um how you thought something was going to shake out, you know, and but again, you're grieving only a form that wasn't its true form, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So God can bring something so much more greater. And
Yeah.
so I think that those are the main issues why people struggle so much to enter into the new. And also because, and I think the third one would be that why fix something that is not broken? Like they may have had a level of success at something. And you know, it's worked for many generations, it's worked for me. Like, why let go of it now? You know?
Yeah.
And so you have to allow new things to new ways to come forth. Like God, I believe that we're also in a transition from toil to toillessness. And
Yes.
so we're sometimes so attached to a form of toil that is putting all this work in so that you can get this thing, but there might be a much faster way to do it. And you can't even enter into it because you are so fixated on, well, it's worked so for so long, like why reinvent the wheel? You know, so I think that there's a fear of innovating even spiritually in the realm of God, you know, as far as like, could there be a different way of doing things? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so good. Some really good points there. Yeah.
And we're very thankful for your voice and voices like yourself that are really leading us through this transition, because oftentimes people think, oh, I'm starting a transition and it's going to happen in a week or 2 weeks or something like that. You know, like that's generally the mindset, you know, but transition is like it's ongoing. It takes much longer than we actually think or you know, give credit to. So yeah, I just think it's so important for us, like you were saying, to look at these things that you mentioned, you know, and see actually, where am I in this grid? Like, what is it that I need to let go of? Like, how are we going to move forward from being stuck in this place? And I really do believe that so many of us here, like on the earth, do feel that stuckness, you know, like we do, like there's this yearning of the new, you know, this yearning of, oh, what is the new? How do we move forward? But I truly believe that people are just truly just stuck and they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do, you know, but it's just these voices like you that do bring the message of immortality and longevity that, I mean, this is it, right? This is what's happening on the planet right now is this thrust towards longevity, and we need to be the answer to that. Like as believers, like we need to be the answer to that. And it's just a matter of catching up. Like it's just a matter of us catching up to where we're meant to be, you know. Would you like to share a little bit around emerald zones that you've been teaching about? Because I think it's really connected to what we've just been talking about of how do we move into the new? How do we get there? You know, how do we, it's this stuckness that we're in, but I know that people are yearning for it, you know? So do you want to share a little bit around that?
Yeah, sure. So the Emerald Zone revelation came out of a few dreams and just a few encounters with the Lord. A lot of them were just processing encounters where I'm just
Yes.
thinking with God. A lot of the revelation I receive is actually through the realm of just the thoughts of God. So it's not necessarily like I'm having a full-blown vision, but some of it is. But um, so the Emerald Zone is something that I called it that because it's imagine the idea of blue zones, right? And for those of you who are not familiar with the blue zones, there are certain regions in the earth that are marked by the people in those regions living exceptionally long lives, and so so they're called blue zones because you know they have people there just live longer. And so I started thinking about immortality, and not just biologically, but what would immortality look like on a um, ecosystem level, on a geographical level, on a regional level, on a architectural level, where the life of God is like fully manifesting through everything, even the very architecture, the buildings, the cities that are built, all of that. The atmosphere, the land itself, the waters, everything coming into the power of life, right? And so the name just came Emerald Zone. I was like, I feel like these are called Emerald Zones. And the reason why emerald, right? And for me, emerald is the color of eternity. And so you know, how else would you describe something that is forever than, you know, eternal? So I called it an emerald zone. And so from that standpoint, I started really feeling like there was something to it, but my question was, how do you bring this into being? And so, like I said, I'm doing a 4-month course on this, so I don't think I can fit it all in this one little snippet.
Yeah.
In essence, what an emerald zone is the syncing of identity between a people or a person and land. So the emerald zone can happen inside of you. It can happen in the land. It can happen in whatever sphere of influence you're in. And so basically, when you connect, when you come into clarity of your identity and you understand the identity of the land that you're in, not the identity that has been necessarily confirmed through the years, even prophetically, but being open to hearing what its actual eternal identity is. So, not its functionality
Yeah.
as to like what it does now, but what it will be doing in eternity. That's its identity. All right.
Mm.
So
Mm.
so you
Wow.
want to know what is its eternal identity, not its identity in the earth.
Yeah.
And when you align that with your eternal identity, what begins to emerge out of that is an emerald zone. So the life of God can begin to open up, and the age of God can begin to descend and sit on that realm, because its truth and its potential can flow through that. So then the age comes in, and then it moves through the emerald zone, and then the emerald zone begins to expand and establish a government of life in the earth, in the heavens, and it has the capacity to produce new heavens and a new earth. So we always forget
Yeah.
that is not just a new earth, it's a new heavens. So we have fought for so long over regions and principalities and powers and different thrones that are, you know, contending in different areas and nations and so forth. But what if there are new principalities, new thrones, new powers that God wants to birth that we don't even have a grid for, because it is supposed to be a new heavens, right?
Mm.
So but how do we do that? So that's where the logos of God, Jesus himself comes in the emerald zone space, because it is everything, according to Colossians 1, was created through the word, through him, right? So when you begin to align the eternal identities and begin to engage the logos, it begins to explode or frame really a system so that the life can come forth, and so that the angelic can begin to move through that, and so that the new heavens can have a range of manifestation, and so that the earth can respond to the new heavens. So it's really an ecosystem that births the new heavens and the new earth and manifests the immortal life of God through creation and humanity. That's really what an emerald zone is. So it's a Goshen, but on steroids.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Wow.
How much are we seeing? How much do you think we're seeing, like emerald zones on the earth? Like where do you think we are with that? How much, or how much of it are we seeing?
I don't think any.
Any? Wow.
I don't think any yet, and
Yeah.
its manifested state. I think that there's places that are beginning to come into alignment. So I think alignment is what's happening
Yes.
right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're beginning to recognize there's something more that we can do, we can actually create with God, right? So we're coming into alignment, which is releasing new levels of faith. And then
Yeah.
we're going to begin to see things differently and have the faith to move and do those things.
Mm.
But I feel that some of it, you know, is also that there is a governing scroll for the age that is releasing these realms of healing and wholeness and transfiguration, that God with the new scroll is not even about healing,
Yeah.
it's about the transfiguration of reality. So so what the emerald zones is, it frames a new reality
Yeah.
that is the antithesis of the reality that is active right now. And so, but it confronts that other reality. So the way that we war, or the way that we confront, is completely different, because we are coming from a place of identity, rather than a place of orphanhood. So a lot of warfare happens in the gap between identity and destiny. So where your identity is collapsed and but there's too much vision for destiny, it opens you up for warfare in
Yes.
your own mind, right? In your own heart. So a lot of warfare happens in that space. But whenever you are walking in true identity and you have the correct perspective of destiny, then there's a harmony that happens and an emerald zone can begin to emerge because then there's no room internally for warfare.
Mm.
So now it's free to just deal with what's out there, and it can, but it's a completely different system. So
Yeah.
when you look at emerald zones regionally or even nationally, it's important to remember that an emerald zone functions first and foremost by identity rather than destiny. So what we have done in a lot of ways is that prophetically we have framed destiny for regions, and we have tried to create spaces to pursue that destiny or to bring that destiny into manifestation that has opened up a lot of warfare. But there has been no establishing of its eternal identity. So it's contested. But when you have these two things in place, then the enemy has no foot in you. There's no foothold in that region, in that place. So even if you're starting on a small scale, and into a national scale, like, you can develop these spaces within yourself, within your own statehood, so to speak, and then move on as the Lord leads you. But imagine if you could do it on a national scale, which would include a cosmic scale, right? And so right now, something that the Lord is really, I feel, well, I'm not going to go into that because we're going to open up a whole other thing. But I will say the transfiguration of reality in the sense of not just changing how things look or how things are. They're not just changing its ontology, meaning its beingness, its existence, but reconfiguring its root system. I think that's what heaven is really after. And I think that this scroll that the Lord is releasing right now through the age of God, when we really come into alignment with that and disregard old systems that we have even been a part of and allow the new thing to come forth, even if it looks completely, different than what we ever imagined. We're going to begin to see the supernatural explode because it's just going to be, part of the atmosphere. It's not going to be a one thing where a natural law is broken and a supernatural thing happens, but the supernatural is going to be an embedded law in the ecosystem, right? So it's just going to flow. And so I think that's really what we're wanting to. We don't want to see, just a breakthrough, just a move. We want to see a sustainable habitation, right? So in that place, really, Jesus, the Father, Holy Spirit can fully come and physically, it's like, I mean, God in our midst, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow. Do you know when you're talking about seeing the land in its eternal state, that really resonated with me. It's because I guess that's one thing that if we can do, if we can actually see the land around us, because I believe that honestly, the land around us, the resources and everything we need as a human species, all the answers to every sickness and disease or whatever it is, or any resource problem or whatever it is, it is in the land around us. It is in the creation that God has made, which is all in right under our noses. And if we can maybe just see that in a different perspective, I guess this is the beginning of, the restoration of God's creation, which was always designed to serve us as human beings. And then I believe this is when we're really going to start seeing the flow of how God intended us to live on the earth and in in this in this realm. But I think this is, yeah, this is, I mean, how this is really amazing. How can we actually, is there any ways that you can sort of help us to kind of understand how we can see the land in an eternal perspective more? I mean, I know as human beings, I know as as we're coming to, reconciliation with our Creator, God shows us our identity, doesn't He? More and more as we get to know Him, we get to know ourselves. But what would this look like in regards to the land around us? And is there any way, can you speak a little bit about that? That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I can. So let me see if I can find some notes concerning that particular stuff. So I'm looking through my notes right here. Okay, so off the top of my head, because it's going to take me a minute to look through pages and pages of that because I wasn't prepared for that question. That's okay.
Was that
That's
a good
okay.
You're
is
the one
that
at
is that a
Fiorella
good
who's
question?
It is a very good question. So one of the ways to discern eternal identity is that when say you're pregnant, okay, and you're gonna have a baby, right? And you don't know what that baby's name is, right? But you're holding that baby in your heart, and you probably are praying about the name, if you're a believer, and which all of us here are. So there is a place where you're cherishing that substance, that even its unborn form, right? You're cherishing, and and you're holding it in your heart. So a lot of it comes into holding the land in your heart without any expectations, without necessarily putting any demands on its utility for you, but just allowing it to exist and just in its, like, Lord, I just simply hold this land in my heart, and I allow love to grow. If I don't have love for that place, I'll allow love to grow, and then the love itself will create a a um a lens for you to be able to really commune with the substance of that land and build relationship with the substance of that land. So
Mm,
when you are coming into the understanding of its name, of its identity, it will be it will be relational rather than a word of knowledge that you got and it's not relational, and then it brings this disconnect a lot of times if you already don't have a heart for that place. So that would be one of the easiest ways to come into its true eternal identity, a letting go of any, prophetic nuances of like so and so said that, that this land is this or is that, and allowing and asking yourself, what is this land in the age of God? Not what it is now, not what it has been, not even what it's going to be in the future, but what is it in the age
yeah,
of God?
yeah.
yeah.
And allowing that space of conversation, create a space of exchange of like, I see you, um, I understand you,
Mm,
I speak life into you until the name comes, until the understanding of what it is comes. And then when that understanding comes, you name it that. You
yeah.
start calling it that. And then from that place, then you will start going. What happens is the spirit realm will open up, the angelic will begin to be released. And so the new range of essence in that land will be unlocked, and it will release things to you, whether it's energetically, whether it's
Wow.
physically. It'll start releasing things to you because it's recognizing the sonship in you. So creation
Wow.
longs, right, for the manifest son. So it's
Mm,
communing with your glory for it. So it says that creation groans for the glory of the manifest son. So it doesn't say for the glory of God, it says for the glory of the manifest son. So it's looking for your glory.
Wow.
So it has to commune with that space, meaning you're holding it in that space spiritually, and then the angelic will start to respond. And one of the biggest keys in the realm of emerald stones is the water. So
Yes.
when you start holding the land, don't just think land, think the waters. I would actually go for the waters first before actually the land. Um,
yeah.
because the waters hold the blueprint for the land. And the
Wow.
waters are carrying the technology for the new Shemayim. So it's the Mayim. But so the Shem, I had a dream about this where the Lord said to me, you must gather the waters in your heart and then you must name them. Because the angels that you need are in the molecular structures of the waters. And I thought it was such an odd statement, like why molecules, it's very specific. It's not, an atom or, any other thing. It's a molecule, which is the threshold of matter and not matter, right? And so being physical and not physical, visibly, visibly. And so I felt like the more that I dove into this, I realized that one of the understandings of the Shemayim is that it's the word Shem, which is name, and then Mayim, which is waters. So heaven could potentially, so the Shemayim could potentially mean named waters. So it's the waters that have been governed versus the waters that just exist, that are just below the firmament. So the Shemayim are like in the firmament and above the firmament. And then the other waters are just natural waters, but the potential are in the waters. And so when you name the waters, you unlock the angelic realm to begin to expand a new heaven. So it's all in the waters. So the new heaven comes out of the waters. And that testimony, that witness unlocks the waters in the firmament above you. And so then you begin to see new cosmic structures, new renewed cosmic systems come into play, angels of new cosmic systems that are above any corruption in the cosmic dimension.
Yeah.
And so you bypass a lot of cosmic warfare that you would normally hit if you just go through the waters. So and then that'll transfigures the waters below as well, but and then the waters biologically, which is what longevity, immortality, all of those things. Aging is very much connected to the the falling apart or the collapsing of structured water in your body. So you're made of like 99% molecular water, which is like there's bound water and then there's like regular water, like water that you drink, But so for the Lord to say that the angels are on the molecular structures, there is a new molecular system that needs to come into play. But these angels are not, you're necessarily like your winged angels that are, they are guarding, or they're hosting and they're guarding the molecular gateways of the new creation, so that the new creation can come into being. And so when these molecular structures begin to manifest, these angels move more as a code rather than like an angelic form. So they move differently. They move more like a chemical structure would, rather than like a being, a form, that, like an angel appearing in my room. Those it's a different angelic realm. So, but from that, it opens up the new heavens, and the new angels can come into your life, into the earth. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, it still confronts things, because water is not like all good either. Like, just as there's like cosmic distortion, there can be distortion in the waters just as much, so it's important. That's why you gather things into your heart, and so you bring them into your heart, and your heart, the resonance of your heartbeat, your pulse, which is the emanation of your identity. It goes into the waters, and so the waters are you're actually brooding in over the waters just with your heart. So your heart is your electromagnetic realm is moving through the waters, and then you speak the name, and then the waters come under the government, and then it comes, and so then the waters can come into their structure, their true structure, and so then the angelic can flow through that domain. So it's important to gather the waters, whether they are in your, the waters in your life. So what do I mean by waters? What are the waters? Is it your emotions? Is it, biological? It's all of the above and the quantum. It's the quantum dimension of your life. Those are your waters. So in a dream I had years ago, the Lord peeled back Genesis 1, like a different layer. And where it says, that the earth, let me read it, was formless. How does it go? In Genesis 1.
I've been getting that verse as you've been speaking. All I've been getting is that verse when the Spirit hovered over the waters, and then God spoke. It was like this is how God created, and so we're as co-creators. This is how we're called to create. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so it says in Genesis 1:2, it says the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface or the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. So in the dream, the Lord peeled back, like the piece of paper, he tore it, and he peeled back that verse, and he allowed me to see into the inner layer. And it said, instead of the earth was formless and void, it said, and the quantum was in disarray. So the quantum is carrying all the potential, and we just sort of accept it as this like thing that is, all things at once, right? But we have to bring governance to the quantum so that all potential can be in agreement with the will of God. Every timeline, every universe, everything, every part of your essence that is participating in some entanglement that you are not familiar with, all of it needs to be brought into coherence, because creation is groaning, right? And creation has been bound to futility with the hope, right? So Jesus did it with the hope that we would set it free. So that's our job. That's our mandate, right? So when we think of the quantum, it's not just something that exists and it's just good. It is part of creation, and it still needs to be brought under governance. So it's not like all quantum is not good. There's a quantum in God that's purely good. But then there's a creation quantum that's different, and there can be an entanglement, but it's different still. So entanglement is real, but you want all entanglement so you want to govern all entanglement, which is wild to think about, because then you're entering into like the realm of possibility, randomness, probability, and it's all these things that you don't even, consciously have a grid for, but your spirit does.
That's
right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So good. As you're speaking, as you were speaking in regards to the relationship, this is what I love. It's the relationship that we have with the waters, with the land, with the creation around us. When we develop a relationship with these living beings, because they are living creatures, they're living beings. These are all, real living beings. And as we develop this relationship with them, it's the love of God that fills us, that we have for this creation around us, which brings it to life. And this is how we literally see heaven on earth. This is how we literally see what we're looking for. Revival, the word revival, but I know you're right. We've got to we're going to change our grid in regards to what that is, and start using different language, because as we do, it expands our mind, and God's able to flow through us in that way.
And it's also moving from the grid of just being earthbound. Like as I'm listening to you speaking about the waters above the firmament, say in old mindsets that we're still transitioning from. We're so earthbound. So when we think of creation, we're just thinking about earth, you know, and the waters within and everything within the earth. Whereas, you know, when God speaks about creation, he's speaking on a cosmic level, on a cosmic grid. And I think this is one of the greatest transitions and the greatest changes in our mindset. It's moving beyond the earth realm. And I think the moment we start thinking beyond, or more of us start thinking beyond, that's when we'll start seeing these emerald zones that you're talking about, you know.
Yeah. Do you know, when you speak of emerald zones, it keeps reminding me of sheep nations. Like, so we're connecting with so Wow Life is connected with Kingdom Initiatives, right? Which is Dave Hodgson's ministry from here in Australia, which is expanded across the whole world. So we're partnering together to see, and Dave Hodgson talks about sheep nations, is talking about just nations, right? And it's literally kind of like what you're saying, but he talks about it that we start from cities. It starts from our own cities that we are, our own environment that we're in, our little villages, towns, cities, and we get to and it's all got to do with changing. Yeah, it's changing the mindset of these cities to remove all the greed and corruption and all the way that all the ways that we are connected to, you know, these entities, like, you know, like the spirit of mammon and you know, and Gaia and all these other different things that are sort of holding us back. But when we can actually get to a place where we're coming to a tipping point in that city, and he says that it's only 6% of even if we just start with the small to medium enterprises of that city, if we can get 6% of the small to medium enterprises in that city, that would literally already be a tipping point and start shifting the culture in that city. And this is just in regards to the economic part. But I think when you speak about these emerald zones, I think you're kind of giving it like what I'm talking about. You're kind of giving it like a spiritual dimension of what's really happening in, as I'm speaking about the economic, you know, way, which also flows into every other realm or every other, you know, different aspect of society. But you're kind of like, God's giving you kind of like this way of seeing it in the spirit of what we're literally doing in the physical.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool? Like, I mean, this is just one movement across the world that's doing this, you know, and I mean, who knows how many there are with what they're doing in you know, physically, to actually be able to shift and change cultures and cities. But I love how
the emerald zones are meant for, so not everybody that builds an emerald zone is going to build cities. I'm called to build cities.
Yeah.
So the way that the emerald zone is the ecosystem for which that is ready to receive a structure, whether that structure is a city or is a facility of some sort, that can then birth a city. So I believe that cities are going to be instrumental in the propagation of the age of God. I do believe that emerald zones, so, you know, when you're dealing with systems of the earth, like economies or healthcare systems or governmental systems, you know, they're still earthly systems. And the thing about them is that, you know, one of the things that I didn't touch on tonight, but time is really a governmental realm for all of those things, whether it's health, whether it's finance, whether it's, you know, ecological things like famines and droughts and things like that. All of those things are governed by time. So it comes under the domain of time. Why finance and economies come under the domain of time? Because of the law of scarcity. So when there's less of something, it makes it more valuable. So then you automatically are under a death system, which is bound to time. So so the transformation, I think that even though transformation is happening in a lot of microcosms, whether it's, the Seven Mountain space or whether it's what you guys are talking about, I think that there are dimensions of transformation that heaven has been releasing, but there's going to be a place that it's not just even the culture that is going um, to be established, like the heavenly culture, but even more so that the nations will stream to the system, right? To the right system.
Yeah.
Like the New Jerusalem, right? All the nations would come to her, right? So her gates are open and all the nations will come into her and bring gifts, but also receive from her. So there is a place where that happens because they know that that's the highest. So it's not just a system being or like a cultural transformation, but even the new system setting the bar and all the other systems aspiring to be like that new system. I think that that's the kind of transformation that we have to have vision for, that even like all the kingdoms of the earth will become the kingdom of God, right?
Yeah.
And so that is one of, I think, one of the things that I personally want to see. And I know so many people that are working, people ask me all the time, what is the fastest way, not the fastest way, but the most seamless way to bring these things into being, even a full flourished emerald zone, because, not just the heavenly development and creation development, but actually the systems and the architecture within that dimension, right? What is the way that this fully comes forth in us? And the more that I think about it, is that when you have established systems and you have established cities, there's so much red tape that you have to go through that it is going to take longer. So you're going to have to think differently in how to bring transformation into those spaces. But if you're in a place where you have the capacity and the influence to begin to frame that emerald zone and allow the systems there to sort of be absorbed into that reality and then begin to um, synchronize, but also new things, emerge out of those things. But I think that takes longer, in my opinion. That's a more difficult road. But I mean, there's some people that are called to do that. They're called to
Yeah.
to go into systems and change them from the inside out. Whereas I think that the Emerald Zone falls more into a place of like we're setting up a new system
Yeah.
and everything else can either be part of it or not be part of it, and that's how it is. But I believe that God is seeding the idea and the current of the Emerald Zone to a lot of people, and maybe in different in different language and different ways. But I think that transformation is coming regardless, right? So what you guys are seeing with the economic stuff, I think it's so interesting when you think about the tipping point. I mean, it's so true. You don't need a whole lot. You just need that little percentage to tip the scale, and then you are on momentum. I mean, you start catching speed. It's almost like that skate velocity.
Yeah. But I love how you say it though. It starts with, honestly, we need to have this alignment with our creator first to be able to be effective in doing this, and as we do this, I guess once we get this revelation of who we are and our identity, then we can also start seeing ourselves in this way, and the waters, the land, the creation all around us, and developing this relationship, and then taking the steps necessary to physically take the steps to put these things into practice, to start seeing change and shifting culture in our wherever, in our own lives, in our families first, in our churches, in our neighborhoods, in our villages, our towns, our cities, our states, our nations, and the world. So I mean that's how it starts. I mean, you know what, I could sit here and ask you a whole bunch more questions, but I tell you what, we can be here for another hour. I think I've noticed we've gone way over what we said we're going to go. But you know what? I just want to I just want to ask you if there's anything else that you wanted to share or wrap up with before we finish up.
Yeah, gosh, I've said so much already. I think that I feel like when it comes to the new things and the new realms that God is offering to us, it's gonna take a lot of courage
Yeah.
to actually step into it. I think that um it's going to be exciting, but it's also going to feel daunting at times. And it's going to require great courage to step into the wildest things that you know that you're supposed to step into, and letting go of those things that either have like run their course in your life or you're called to let go of. So I would say, have the courage to let go where you need to let go, to step into the new, and allow the Lord um to fine tune you. That there's always um being intentional to the little registers of the old in you, like, Lord, okay, I feel that old lag, because it's that lagging where we know there's something new, we know that there's a new paradigm, but we're lagging because we're still, our inner selves are still getting caught up, right, with the revelation, with the understanding. And so we can be so frustrated at times because things aren't moving fast enough, or we are not moving fast enough. But we have to remember that um that as long as our agreement is there, and as we continually align as the revelation comes, God is faithful to take us fully in. We just have to let go.
Yeah.
So that's the last thing I would want to say. I mean, I think I've said so much already.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
You've said so many wonderful things, and letting go, honestly, is one of the best ways to wrap up, because honestly, if we can learn to do that as a human species, well, we can allow God then, to have his way. And you know what? You do some incredible stuff. I've heard you do courses. You actually said you do an actual course, even on the Emerald Zones. You said, didn't you? And you probably got a bunch of other stuff that you do that people might want to actually look further into. And what we'll do is we'll maybe post a few links on in the comments, I think, so people can just check out what you offer and what you do. I think because this is something that I think that we need to actually come into a revelation and understanding before we move forward with what we want to
Absolutely.
see. Yeah. Thank you so much, Fiorella. That was just so wonderful hanging out with you today, and really appreciate you. Love what you do. Love how what we were chatting about before. I love how you put language to what I feel. So many people can probably understand that. It's sometimes I don't know how to explain things. I'm sensing it, but then someone like you actually write something. I'm just like, yes, that's exactly what it is. So really appreciate it, and really
Thank you.
thank you for honored to
An
have you
honor.
on with us. Yeah.
Love being with you guys. Thank you so much for framing the conversation so well. It was easy to walk through. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
So
Beautiful.
much.
Thank you. Blessings.
All right, blessings. Bye.
Bye bye.